Myles Berrio, the man, the myth, the legend. Welcome to the podcast, my man. It's so good to see you.
Thank you. Thank you. I am beyond honored to even be here, man. This is awesome.
Absolutely. So Myles, let's kick this thing off. And if you want to kind of give the audience kind of a background of like, what did life look like for little Myles as you were growing up?
Yeah, great question. So maybe like a lot of people that are listening to. So I actually came from the very humble beginnings. My dad's from Panama. My mom's from Montego Bay, Jamaica. So it's so funny. I actually was just having a conversation with someone about commercial real estate because I'm extremely, extremely focused in getting into triple net leasing, which is another conversation. But one of the things that we talked about is the lady that I was talking to. She had just recently bought a Dollar General, and she was talking about how it wasn't really the most exciting thing that she had bought, just because of the nature of what they sell. You know, a lot of those things, are very plastic, really kind of just not the best quality type of toys and just items, and they go into the economy or at least the environment, and they're not that great. And it's interesting. I think we all have our own experiences, obviously that create the perspective and the lens that we, see life. Because I was like, man, but I can totally see how Dollar General, because she said actually one out of every 3 or 4 of these like retail spaces are like Dollar Generals. No, they're popping up like everywhere.
Jesus.
Like literally, there's so many. There are a lot more Dollar Generals than people imagine, and it actually makes sense though. Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you think about the middle class is getting smaller, and you have just upper class, and then you have lower class. There's obviously a lot more people, and I mean, do you think there are many more people that have tons of wealth that don't go to Dollar General? Not really, right? And the reason I bring this up to kind of tie back to upbringing is I was telling her how, well, I can see how it would be beneficial for a lot of families, because I remember when my mom and dad, when school came around, I mean, it was like heaven sent to have like a Dollar General, because those 3-ring binders you had to get, and all those like the spiral notebooks or whatever. I mean, they were able to buy them for 3 kids, and like you had to have different ones for every class. I mean, you're talking about maybe 20 to 25 spiral notebooks, all for like $25-$30. You know what I mean? So anyway, the reason I bring that up is because I definitely grew up in a world where money was taught to be something that's hard to acquire. Wealth is hard to acquire, and if you want to get rich, you got to look at people in a way that they're going to scam you and they're going to take money from you. So you need to just work as hard as you can at a job, save as much money, and don't give money away. Don't trust people, and and also just the mindset that, if you want to get ahead in life, just, work harder, just keep working harder, just keep working harder, just keep working harder. Cause I always tell people that, my relationship with my parents, and I love my parents, and they actually did we did a lot of great things together, but I'm just saying in terms of where we're moving in this conversation, why I'm bringing this up is my relationship with my parents had a lot to do with what I like to call sticky notes on the refrigerator, right? It was very much like when I would come home from school, my parents were already sleeping because they were working all day overnight. And then by the time that, I was going to bed, they were waking up to go to work. And then by the time that, I got home from school, they were, just got back home, or at least coming home later and going straight to sleep. It was just, there was always sticky notes on, hey, this is what you got to do. This is what we got to do. This is what you got to do. And that was kind of a big line of communication because they were working so much, they could never really spend as much time with us. Now, we did a lot of things like, we different vacations together and things like that. But just on a general sense, I just remember a lot of just them working a ton. Even now, when I have my daughter, it's very hard for my parents to come see her because they're always having to take off work 2 to 3 weeks in advance or a month in advance. And they usually can, and the schedule does get conflicts, and you know what I mean? So I kind of grew up in that world where, education is very important, go to school, work really hard.
Yeah. So quick question. How did you become such and obviously I know you well, but like such a charismatic, lighthearted, just like the energy, and I think I could speak for probably every person that knows you, that when you get around, there's like an energy that vibrates around you. And growing up with maybe parents that are like, oh, people are going to scam you, or you got to be careful. You got like, it almost seems like where in there did all of a sudden this like charismatic kind of guy, like were your parents super charismatic? Did they always like, was there a light side about it too, that life's beautiful, or like, where did that part of you form?
No, I that's a beautiful question. I was very observant as many kids are as kids, but one of the things that I was very observant was just really your attitude and how that affected the way you move through life. I really saw the difference between my mom and my dad, how they would both respond to things and how it would affect whatever that end result was. Because the reality is, and I'm sure as you know, is like there's a difference between responding to something and reacting. And I definitely saw through my dad, he was a little bit more of a reactionary individual. He would react and I would see the result of that. And then I might see my mom respond to something and see the result of that. So I quickly started to learn, okay, your mindset really makes a big difference on how you move through life. Even just within my own sibling, family,
right.
Having a brother and a sister, I would see like how if one of them responded or reacted in a certain way, that this would end up being the result for that. The same thing goes in school, kids that were in your class, if they reacted in a certain way, or if they responded in a certain way. And I know I keep saying reacting and responding, but for those of you listening, there really is a difference between reacting to something and responding. If you think about like chemistry, when you put two chemicals together and they just react, it's so abrupt and there's like no just synergy and it's just an explosion of reaction and something crazy happens. But if you look at something that responds, there's a little bit of connectivity, right? There's a little bit of energy flow that goes in the right direction. And I think if we can live through life understanding that, two things. Number one, how you respond to life is a big deal. And that all comes from your mindset, developing your mindset. But then number two, what really allowed me to be charismatic and just really loving people and just understand that life's great is perspective, man. I think at a very young age, I had experiences that opened my mind to perspective. I remember one trip when I was in college. Actually, it's so funny. When I was doing network marketing at Mimo, one of the things that we did is we went to Guatemala, right? And built houses in Guatemala. Yeah. And I always tell this story. Yeah, man, it's crazy. I always tell this story how when I got back from Guatemala and I was in the bathroom at a gas station and I was going to go to the restroom and I opened the stall and there was like feces, number two, like in the toilet. And, there's, I'm not, anyone who knows me, I'm not one to get all, fired up and frustrated and just like, oh, how, it's crazy, get all upset. But there was a little bit in me that like, oh, come on, man, like just flush the toilet. Like this is like, but I had to think in my mind that I am getting frustrated that I don't have clean water available for me to put my waste in, right? I mean, think about it. I know that's kind of a nasty, that might be a little bit too far-fetched, but if you really can kind of stick with me here, understand perspective. There are people in many countries around the world who, number one, don't even have access to clean water, but number two, have to work to get, I mean, we're talking about maybe walk a mile or more just to get to water. Or again, it's just not clean and they're having illnesses and diseases and stuff because of what's in the water. And I'm here in America in this, nice little building and space. And I'm upset because I don't have clean, fresh water for my waste. You know what I mean? I mean, just perspective, man. It's just wild, right? Yeah. So there were a lot of experiences like that, that I, chose to be a part of that gave me that experience, but also that I didn't choose. And I just had an experience like just being, under my parents' roof and just having experiences that caused me to empathize with people, just things that I would, experience like in school, my wife, she always loves to listen to, different interviews and things that I'm doing. She'll probably listen to this and she knows, like, I showed her this Facebook message from a friend. He just, I guess for whatever reason, found me on Facebook and we were in elementary school and he sent me a message. And he goes, Myles, I don't know if you remember me, but I was that kid that you would always share your lunch with, back in school. And he's actually, he was in a wheelchair. I remember him. He was in a wheelchair, very sort of kind of like, handicapped. And I just always remember he would sit by himself and not really many people would talk to him and he wouldn't be there. But I understood what it felt like to be popular, to be, on the cool side of the fence. I understood what it felt like, to be in that sort of experience where people look at you and inspired, empowered, and you kind of maybe, get to benefit a little bit because, you're kind of looked up to and looked up, at and whatnot. But then I also experienced my brother, great guy. I love my brother. He's amazing. But I do remember growing up that he was very overweight and kind of what you would be considered as a nerd growing up. So I saw what he had experienced and I felt I just felt this is so wrong that he gets treated this way simply because of like the shows that he watches and he's a little overweight and, way he looks. So I just started developing this empathy to want to serve people that were sort of outcast, this sort of being drawn to people that, didn't really get benefits the way others did just because the way they looked and the money that they had and, the sort of society that they were able to be in maybe through wealth or, whatever it may be. So anyway, I think those two things are very important for people to really build this characteristic that draws people to you is number one, understanding that relationships are everything, and you need to develop the sense of perspective, right? This perspective of the things that you have, that you're already wealthy beyond measure than you can imagine. Especially if you're listening to this podcast, you're probably wealthier than you can even imagine, than like 60, 70% of the world, right? We don't realize that. Yeah. Anyway, I could go on and on and on, but to answer your question, that's,
Yeah. And two things I think that are like such a beautiful gift that people can get listening to this is like asking yourself right now, what are you reacting to in your life that maybe you need to be responding to? Right. Because like you said, like things happen to us in life, and we'll get more into your story, but it's like so many people have these knee-jerk reactions where it's like this happened and that means this, and we just let our mind take over and we don't take a deep breath. And what I would recommend for anybody, if you're reacting, is like take a deep breath and ask yourself, like, what do I really want here? What's my goal? What's my outcome? Or if I reacted this way, would it be a good outcome? Would it be a bad outcome? Like, we need to really process some of these things before we just knee-jerk reaction. We need to respond, like you said. And then I think the other thing you said, just beautiful, is like perspective. Like it nailed it on the head. If you're listening to this, meaning you have some form of technology that allows you to listen to this podcast, you're crushing it. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of different directions we can go. What I would love to jump into, and I'm curious some other things, so we might kind of go all over the place today.
Yeah, let's go all over the map. I'm ready. Monopoly. Let's just go all around the board. Let's do it.
Exactly. So one thing I'm curious is I would love you to shed a moment on kind of some of the most recent thing that you've been through. And for those people listening, to kind of fill them in on where your story is like one day you wake up, perfectly normal day, sun shining, right? Skies are maybe blue. You're out in Georgia. Maybe it's either snow or it's a little humid. You get in a car, you're driving, and all of a sudden you wake up. I don't know how many days after it was, but you wake up one day, you're in a hospital. And I'm curious if you could just walk us through, like, the first moment you kind of came to terms when you're sitting in the hospital bed and you kind of come to terms with like what actually just happened.
Yeah. Well, first of all, I just definitely want to just real quick to say, I love how you sort of preface that question with really creating this image of like, it was just like a normal day, as sunshine, I'm just driving, and then bam. And the next moment I'm like in the hospital. It really shines light to how fast life can change. And I tell people this all the time. Like, you really like, dude, I mean, life can change in an instant, seriously. Yeah. And that's exactly what's happening. So I was actually here in South Carolina. My wife and I, we live here in Greenville, South Carolina. And I was coming home from the gym. And even, I don't want to say even worse, but like, it actually wasn't early in the day. Actually, the whole day was pretty much, it was late at night. I never go to the gym at night. I always just like, I wake up in the morning. It's like one of the first things I do. But I had been traveling and doing a lot of different things, like work-wise. And, I hadn't been in the gym for like 2 to 3 days. And I was just like, you know what? I don't want to miss another day. It's like 7-ish, 8 o'clock. You know what? I'm just going to bring myself to just get to the gym. And lo and behold, obviously, went to the gym at night. And, I had done tons of stuff throughout the day. So I thought the day was actually over, right? Lo and behold, the day had just gotten started, right? So I was coming home from the gym. And yeah, you're right. I was actually talking to a friend of mine. We're just talking about real estate stuff. And then bam, I really don't even remember the impact. All I remember is kind of going in and out of consciousness, maybe like 2 or 3 times, and just seeing a lot of like red and blue lights, just a lot of lights and everywhere. Cause I was probably unconscious for a while until, the ambulance and everything came. I do remember saying that I can't breathe. And someone kind of like saying, Myles, stay with me. And it literally just felt like a dream. It kind of felt like, you know how you don't really remember when you fall asleep, you kind of just fall asleep, and then there's like a dream going on. You just don't, you're not all there. It just really felt like I'm just dreaming, Lo and behold, I was not dreaming. So I wake up, and really the only, I could be wrong, because again, it's such a traumatic experience. Maybe I woke up earlier. I don't remember, but the only thought, or the only memory I actually remember when I woke up, was when the doctors and my family were standing around me, and they obviously looked super like, emotional and like, oh my gosh, I already knew something was really bad. But I just remember basically being asked as soon as I woke up, because it was really like, I was in critical care. This is like, if this is going to happen, it's going to have to happen now. So I didn't really have a lot of time to like wake up, and there's like a, beeping sound. I get to see my family, like movies or whatever. We have a conversation. No, the very first moment when I woke up, the doctors are basically asking me, hey, basically in order for you to survive, we're going to have to cut your leg off. And we're going to have to amputate your leg. Obviously, they can't just forcefully do that. They had to get my permission. I had a feeding tube down my mouth. You're barely conscious when they're asking you. Oh, this. Yeah. I don't know I literally just woke up, right? I just got up, And, but again, like I said, they got to move fast. I mean, I'm going to die.
Totally.
I was literally going to die.
Your life's priority.
So I just had to nod my head if I agreed. And I have a feeding tube. I can't even talk. I don't know what's going on. Everything is like wrapped in. I just kind of nod my head like, sure. I mean, I'm just thinking like, let me just agree to stuff. I'm in a hospital. They know what they're doing. And I just said yes. And then I remember again going back. Well, I don't remember, but obviously I went back to sleep. Obviously they put me under. And then I just remember waking up in like a, hospital bed with like every limb wrapped up in bandages and, basically my leg cut off. Like I remember looking down and my leg was just, legitimately like cut off, never coming back. I mean, it's literally just gone. So anyway, that was kind of that was how that happened. Craziness, man. And then starts a whole journey from there, right? Craziness.
Yeah. So I'm curious for you, like obviously people hear your tonality right now, or if people are watching on YouTube, they see like your body, like, and they can hear your still unbelievably positive outlook on life. And so I'm curious for you, like for me, I went through something not nearly as traumatic, but 4 years ago now, I was diagnosed with cancer. And it was...
I remember that, dude. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. And it was kind of one of those moments where the doctors are like, hey, this is what's going on. You have cancer. And for me, it was kind of a moment of instantly like, I need to get my mind in the right place, because if I put my mind in the wrong place, I can plant the seed can grow, and that can lead to death or not really good things. Right. I'm curious for you, like what was sort of the like mindset that you've taken on? Because it was less than a year ago, right?
Oh yeah. It was like 7-8 months ago. Yeah.
Okay. So what was the mindset that you've sort of adapted to that? Like, I mean, people look at the last 8 months of your life. You've done unbelievable things. Like tomorrow you're doing Walk a Mile with Myles in Atlanta, Georgia, walking a mile with your daughter on your shoulders. Just like, what's the mindset that you've started to adapt coming out of this? Because I think I would say for 99.9% of people, they would not have the perspective that you have. And I think you can shed a beautiful perspective on anybody going through anything in their life.
Yeah. Seriously. I really feel like a lot of things are very systematic, and you can really put yourself in a position, kind of like equations, like almost, sort of like rules that really do work no matter who you are or where you're from. So there's like really kind of like, maybe 2 or 3 things that I'll talk about. Let's just talk about the fact that when something happens that's very traumatic, like what happened with me, number one is you got to deal with it. You got to deal with that emotion. You got to walk through all the different, I hate this sucks. I'm happy. I'm angry at the person. Why me? All these things. The reason I say that is because I was having a conversation with a person the other day. Oh, actually, no, I was doing an interview and they were asking me, how do you feel about the woman who hit you? And I absolutely said, man, I feel no negativity towards her at all. Absolutely no. And that's not to be like, oh, this guy's just so ridiculous. He's not human. That's not fair. No. So here's the thing. What happens a lot of times is, people eat super unhealthy, right? And they don't care about their body. And then when they have to go to the hospital because something crazy happened, then they start having better healthy habits, right? Yeah. My thing is you want to have, so in health, there's what's called preventative health, right? Yeah. Right. You want to have preventative habits, right? You want to put your mindset in a way that when something does happen, because you live in life, and let's just say it will, you don't want to say if something bad happened. No. Things will happen in your life that you can't control, that will be very traumatic. You want to make sure you've already done the work. You don't want to wait until the trauma happens for you then to learn how to get through it. So let's just start with number one, you got to sit with whatever's going on. When I was in the hospital bed, it's like one of the few things they can do to kind of make you happy a little bit is have this big TV in your room. I told literally for weeks, I told the nurse, I really wanted the TV out of the room because I didn't want the urge, but I just told them, don't turn the TV on. For weeks, I sat in silence. Dude, that is very uncomfortable for the average person. That's so weird because we want to distract ourselves. We don't want to walk through what's going on. Let me just turn on the TV. I don't want to deal with this. And you will at some point. Because if you just stuff everything under the rug, you're going to trip. You're going to trip over it, whether you like it or not, right? So instead of doing that, let's take it all out of the rug and start placing things where they need to go. So I can walk wherever I need to go and not worry about what's in the way because I'm walking on the right direction. So what I started doing is I started walking through all the emotions that typically a lot of times people have for years and years and years. It's like 20 plus years and they're finally dealing with like, the unforgiveness or whatever that they, finally something out of it. You don't have to wait that long. You don't have to carry these things on for so long. So that's number one, dealing with that. And if people are like, well, how do I do that? Well, number one is you have to meet where you are right now and embrace that fact, accept it, and then just start walking through all the emotions. Man, I cannot believe this happened to me. Why me? You're going to ask those questions like, why me? Why me?
100%.
The second thing that I think is important, once you meet where you are and don't distract yourself, but just really start, I got to deal with this. I got to sit in this. And I know maybe not everyone will be able to do this, but this is my own experience. This is how it was for me.
Please.
Is your faith has to kick in. I'm a believer in Jesus Christ. And if you're not, that's fine. I'm not here to obviously convert people, but it is just the reality for me. It is what allowed me to move through this. Number one, my forgiveness for her is not something that's so extraterrestrial and weird. It literally just comes through my faith. How can I not forgive this woman when Jesus forgave me for all of the sins that I've done and still kind of continue to do, right? This woman at the end of the day made a mistake. She's still a human being. And Stu, haven't you and I made a mistake? Yeah. I can promise you 100%, I've never been drinking behind the wheel and had to have someone go to the hospital and get their leg amputated. But I bet you and I have amputated somebody, maybe emotionally. Maybe we've amputated someone spiritually. We don't know that we have these effects with people, but just through life, because we're making mistakes for human beings and we're learning and getting through things. You've probably hurt someone, man. You've probably done things, you've done these things, you've made mistakes. So what makes my mistake better than her mistake? What makes her mistake, way worse than my mistake? Yeah. We just make mistakes and they have results for them. But at the end of the day, she's still human and there's still forgiveness for her, just like God forgave me, right? So that, again, that faith going into that is number one. The second thing that happened, I guess it would be like part 2B. So that's part 2. 2A. 2B would be the fact that also with my faith is really understanding that and I'm just talking believers here now. And this is okay because I understand why we do this, but I'm very, very big on understanding the character of God. Even if it may sound good or might be for a good cause, if it doesn't reflect the character of God, I really don't want to, I don't want to portray that and reflect that. So what I mean by that is, in the Christian community, you hear people say, well, Myles, man, this happened to you because God gives his biggest battles to his strongest soldiers, right? Because I'm so mentally strong. Yeah. And people say, okay, I can see why maybe this happened to Myles because he's just going to bounce back and da-da-da-da. Wrong. What that implies is that in order for God to show his love for his people, that he did this to me. Imagine that. Imagine how twisted that kind of, in order for God to show that he loves the world, he had to have a drunk driver make this ignorant, irresponsible, mistake of crashing into this guy who's a family man, a believer in Christ, doing the right. I don't even drink. I don't even like drinking. I've never drank, never even had that to be a part of my story of my life. And for that to happen and then me bounce back in order to show people that like God's real and that like God, no. The reality is we live in a world of sin and death. That's just the reality. I know it's not the most comfortable to accept, but that is the reality. We live in a world where people make bad decisions, whether you believe in God. We can all agree we just live in a world where people make bad decisions. Yeah. Bad things happen. That's the world we live in. And if you are a believer, you understand, again, the fallen man in Genesis and their sin, that's just what we live in, right? So where Jesus comes into play is when these things happen because of where we live and that we are humans and that we live in a world of sin, praising God and honoring him, in the midst of all that is where the power of God comes in. Because my brother right now has now given his life to Christ because of how I've responded to this. And that's not me saying this because I'm on a podcast. This is crazy. My brother has actually been like an atheist since I can remember. But literally he called me and we've always had, conversations back and forth about, Jesus and all these things. He knows I'm just a huge, big believer in it and all these things. And then he sees my life and all these things I'm doing. It's amazing. So it kind of, when you pray to God and you're living a life that's incredible, people who aren't believing God, they kind of,
they go, what?
Maybe there's something
what's going
there.
On?
Yeah. Maybe there's something for me. Maybe I need to, anyway, that's a whole other conversation. But he literally said, Myles, if it wasn't for how you responded to this, I would have continued to have anger in my heart. I would have wanted to go after this woman because that's natural. That's who we are as human beings, right? Naturally, we get angry. This is my brother. This is a family member. I can't believe this girl did this to me. I just want to get so angry. You get her back. That's a natural human response, right? But when you're a believer in Jesus Christ and that is not the word of God. That is not how we respond to situations with anger. We want to, fight back and all this stuff. Yeah. But guess what? Someone who didn't believe in God got to experience the feeling of what that's like, simply because his brother is a believer in Christ. So me responding this way had that effect on him, which is insane, right? It's crazy. So that's like 2B to this, is that this didn't happen to me because God wanted it to. This happened to me, and by praising God, that's where the power that affects people and it charges people and gets them to see how incredible, the love that God has for me and that I have for him is so real because it causes this individual to do what they did, just like, God giving his only son to die on a cross. I mean, there's certain things that's just wild, but unless you have that sort of spirit that's so set apart, the word holiness, set apart, that it causes people to do those things, right? So that's that. I mean, seriously, that would be number 2, my faith. And then number 3 is the perspective side. That's the last thing is seriously, when I was in the hospital, yes, I could sob, but here's the reality of 3A and B. 3A is the reality that at the end of the day, me being angry at her is not going to change my situation. Guys, if you're going through something right now and it's traumatic and it's, yes, deal with the emotion. It's a real thing that you have, but understand that if it's not conducive to you moving forward, it doesn't change your situation. Me being angry at this girl, me having resentment, it's me drinking my own poison, right? It doesn't even make sense. It's not, she could be living her life. Who knows what she could be out in Hawaii now and maybe has like a cane and she got through that. And, who knows? Obviously she could be in jail. Who knows? But the reality is like me being angry at instead of her doesn't affect my life in a positive way. Right.
Totally.
So it just doesn't make sense. So I need to understand that what happened. What do I do now? How do I move forward in a way that'll be constructive, not destructive? Right. So 3B, the last part of that in terms of perspective is, and I know this is such a hard concept, but you got to get this, is that you got to try and practice, you got to practice the mindset that it could be worse. And I know that people go, oh, come on. Dude. No. Check this out. I know that my injuries suck, dude. And it's not just being amputated. If you're watching YouTube, you can see my arm. I mean, people think I'm like a burn victim. I have no movement in my fingers. I'll never get that back. My arm barely is able to bend here. It looks totally gnarly. It looks so bad. My right leg, that's actually supposed to be the good leg, actually isn't. That's why I wear a brace on it. My foot has foot drop. So my ankle's really still broken. I'm walking around on a broken ankle. And then my leg, the other leg is just cut off and I'm in a prosthetic. There's a lot of injuries that I'm dealing with, right? Yeah. But the reality is even though my injuries are a little bit more physical and it's easier to see, I know that everybody's fighting a battle. I understand that everybody has some type of amputation or injury that they're dealing with. Everybody's fighting something, man. Even if their Instagram looks like they're 1 million followers and living a life traveling all the, I'm telling you, I've been there. I have so many friends all the way from people struggling financially all the way to multi-millionaires. And I'm telling you, across the entire board, that's one thing that makes us all connected and similar is that doesn't matter whether you're making $1 million a year or $1,000 a year, we all deal with challenges that are just hard, man. And that, things suck sometimes, dude. It's just hard challenges in your life. I mean, think about it. I mean, yes, anyone could look at me here and be like, dude, you have every right to be like, dude, life sucks. This is crazy. I mean, you're having to deal with all this. But then I could go fly to Guatemala and just totally compare my life to them and be like, wow, first of all, I have a beautiful wife with amazing kids. I have opportunities. I'm in real estate. Despite all this, I'm making money. I'm traveling, all this. And this person, they can't even find clean water. You know what I mean? There's people literally even in our local area that are homeless that don't even know if they're going to eat that day. And I know without a doubt, if I'm hungry right now, I can go eat. Right. So you got to just start putting things in perspective like, man, it could be way worse. So if it can be way worse, what do I need to do? I need to recognize that if it could be way worse, there are people that are in need. So that means my problem becomes smaller because I just recognize someone else's challenge that I can go help. Yeah. But now my problem doesn't seem so big because if you can go help someone, that means you have something that they don't, which means you are wealthier than someone else, which means you have things to be grateful for. You have things that have the blessings that you can count, right? Yeah. I mean, anyone listening to this podcast right now, I'm pretty sure anybody would not be able to say, I am in the worst situation in the entire planet of billions of people. I am the worst case. There's nothing worse than what I'm going through in my life right now. It may seem that way. I promise you, there's so much part of the world that will make you go, dang, all right, I need to wake up. I'm actually pretty blessed. Yeah. So anyway, I know that was probably way too long, but that's how I was able to walk through this and where my mindset was to get to where I'm today. This is not a joke. This is not a facade. This is not me just, being this on this. And then when I get to the room, I'm going to be like, man, I hate life. No. This is what allows me to do all the things that I'm doing and why my life is moving in the trajectory that it is because it has to come from the mind first. Yeah. The outside of your world will reflect what's inside. That is just true.
100%. And so I'm going to do like a quick recap because Myles, your wisdom is just profound. So I want to go over this real quick again is like, so one, you're saying the first thing is you got to deal with it, right? Yes. So it's like, if you're listening to this and you're going through something, and I agree. And I just did this like 5-day challenge. Today was the last day. And it was so crazy to like obviously you've been, and everybody has their own battles, but it is wild to see how so many of us, the majority, I would say, go through things that are in our life and we never deal with them. We push them under the rug, and for decades it goes on to affect us. So I think, just like you're saying, it's like, number one, whether you're going through something that's maybe you're having trauma because you never had the relationship you wanted with your parents and you felt they were rude to you, or whatever it was, like whatever that trauma was, or maybe you lost a leg, like something like you, or like something, it could be from the smallest to the biggest thing, but whatever it is, number one, you got to deal with it. And then number two is, like you said, like put in your faith. And one of the things that I hear here is, like, again, not here to convert people. If you believe, awesome. If you don't, find another way that you can have faith in getting through whatever it is. Like when I went through my much smaller battle, like you said, perspective.
Battle's a battle.
A battle's a battle. But I was always telling myself that this is happening for a reason. Like that you know what I mean? And it's like, because I believed that and had faith, even just in that one statement, it made the process of getting through all of that tenfold easier than I think anybody else that would have dealt with it, because it was like there was some sort of faith in that. So for anybody listening to something, and it's like, not to go back to this challenge again, but it's like one of the things we were talking about is that, like, every decision we make in our life, everything that happens to us in our life in some way, shape, or form has a blessing, a lesson, or a teaching, or really is just preparing us for the next step of our life if we can look at it. And I know,
yes, I love that you said that. If we can
look at it, because
it's a choice.
It's a choice, right?
You got to choose to do it. Yep.
Exactly. So kind of like you're saying, as we go into like step 3, right? You have to, as difficult as it sounds, try to find what's the lesson, the blessing, the perspective. Right? Yeah. What's the lesson, the blessing, the teaching that you're going to get from this? Because if you can find that, maybe this is still on part 2, many steps here, right? But it's no, not at all, man. But it's like, if you can find what's the lesson, the blessing, the learning, and you can grab and attach faith to that, like, the other side of the coin is so much more beautiful, right? And so, all right, so number 2, we got to figure out, what was number 2 again? Yeah,
no, so you're right on it. So 2 was faith. There was 2A and 2B. Yeah. So that was the whole idea of faith, is like, understanding that, God didn't do this to me, right? But just understanding that we live in a world of sin and death, and that things happen, but by glorifying God and praising God, it allows the effect of what we want with God in our relationships to happen to other people, rather than just saying, oh, well, God gives us biggest battles, the strongest soldiers. This happened to you because, God wanted it to, so he can use you. That's not necessarily how that works. You have to choose, kind of like we talked about, you have to choose to see it through a lens that praises God in spite of the sin and the bad decisions and choices that sometimes people make that affect us, that really give that effect, that gives that power, to really affect your life and other people's.
Right. 100%, man. So 2 is faith, and then 3 is you got to get the perspective, right?
Yeah,
so 3 is always letting yourself know. And again, like you said, can be extremely difficult. And I think anybody listening to this, like, we'll put all Myles' stuff in the show notes, but like, go look at what Myles is doing. And I promise you, look at him, you're going to be inspired to say, it could always, like people in Guatemala, right? Someone doesn't have water at this very moment, like whatever you're going through. If you can shift that perspective, you can shift the lens in which you see the world, and you can shift your light. And so, I think that was kind of the recap. What was part 3A? 3B was perspective.
No, 3A. Yeah. So 3 was perspective, and 3A of perspective is understanding that what just happened. Like whatever I do after this is really going to determine whether my life goes in a positive direction or a negative direction. So you want to make sure that whatever you choose to do is going to be constructive, not destructive, right? So I could be angry, I could be mad, I could blah, blah, all that stuff, but it's not going to change my situation at all.
It's not going to get you where you want to be.
Yeah, I could be angry at her all day. Nothing. I'm still going to have this leg. I'm still going to have good things that happen, right?
Yeah.
But what can I do now to put me? So that was 3A. And then 3B was understanding, again, perspective, that it could be way worse, dude. Like, you know what I mean? Like, dude, you know what I mean? So,
okay. So I think for everybody listening to this, I think you should probably go rewind and listen to the last 20 minutes again. Because just so much wisdom. And Myles, I know we could be talking here for hours. I want to be respectful of your time. I'm curious if people want to get like more info on you, see what you're up to, see what's going on in your world, and just get some of that beautiful energy that you resonate. Where's the best place for them to find you?
Yeah, man, I'm probably not doing the best job just because I'm so heavily involved in real estate right now, building just this huge real estate investing business. Really Instagram. I know it's like so lame. It sounds like maybe I should have like a book, a website, email, I don't know. So I literally, if you just follow me on Instagram, you'll probably get 95 or more % of my life. So yeah, it's just at Myles.Berrio. So MYLES.Berrio, BERRIO.
Heck yeah. And we'll put it in the show notes. And so last question I got for you, Myles. On the show, we're all about helping people find direction, but we want to do it through action. So what would you say is one thing someone listening to this can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start finding direction in their life?
Start finding direction.
Yeah. And again, this could be something that, okay, cool. Boom, go.
Yeah. Very easy. If the goal is to find direction, because there's a lot of different things. I could give things about how to take action, how to, all these different things. But if you're just trying to find direction, I know I like to do a lot of part A, part B, because it's hard to really just say one thing. So part A of that is there's this quote that I always live by. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll go its entire life thinking that it's stupid. Now let's break that down. If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, now why is that like not conducive for the fish? Why is the fish being judged on something it wasn't designed to do? But we that happens to us all the time, right? Like in school, you might not be that great at math obviously if you're just not studying, that's one thing, but just the way your brain works, but you're judged in a way that you have to be great at every single thing.
Yeah.
But there's just no one that's just great at every single thing. You have strong suits. There's things that really stimulate in a certain way. So if you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll go its entire life thinking that it's stupid. Meaning you'll never feel fulfilled. You'll never feel adequate, right? You're always going to feel like you're on a rat race and you're never enough and you're not living the life that you should be living. So it's about understanding who you are. I got buddies of mine that are fish that are trying to act like monkeys. Buddies of mine that are monkeys trying to act like zebras. Dude, you got to figure out what and who you are, the life that you want. And especially if you're in between 20s and 30s, or just doesn't even matter what age, if you're, all of us are always like trying to level up our life and we're all in business, trying to create things. So I'm going to speak to that sense. That's the number one thing that's a mistake for most people trying to build a business or being an entrepreneur or yada, 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 is you're so focused on being something else and you haven't designed your lifestyle first. And here's what I mean by that. Most people will focus on the business aspect. How can I make more money? How can I build a business? And then they build their lifestyle around that. They make more money. They get a bigger car, or they get a nicer car, a bigger house. They start traveling more, et cetera, et cetera. You want to reverse that. You want to design your life and then let your business go around that. So what I mean by it as an example is I do not work on the weekends. I do not work on the weekends. That's me designing a part of my life that fulfills me and who I am as who I want to be. That's me being a fish. I know what I want to be. I see some other guys that are zebras and dogs and cats and, they're grinding out on the weekends, taking calls, doing things. That's, dude, making money. Dude, that's awesome. But see, if I then go chase that and then I don't feel fulfilled because my wife's not happy, who's been there from day one, we got kids, whether my business is up or down, they're going to be there. So why should I be valuing them less than, anything else, right? I want my value to go to those individuals. When everything disappears, they're there. Because those are the ones that are be there. When none of this other stuff we have, YouTube, podcast, money, all that stuff, they're going to be the ones next to you. You're figuring it out together. So I don't work on the weekends. But see, I figured that out first. So when my business gets crazier and crazier, which it is, I still have boundaries. I know who I am. And it allows me to be self-sufficient. Anyway, so that's A. You got to understand that. The other side of finding direction, once you're really starting to figure out what it is that you want is, or what it is you want in life and where you're going, who you are, is you need to understand, it's so funny. Martin Luther King says, you don't need to see the whole staircase to get to the top. All you need to do is see the first step and then keep stepping. And the challenge for a lot of people is they're so focused on jumping to the top, they don't realize that wherever they're going is already there. If you're going up the staircase, is the entrance of wherever you're going or the door or whatever it is it moved? No. But if you just take that step right in front of you and then you focus on that little thing that you can do, is it not true you're just going to end up there?
Yeah. Same
thing with a GPS. You put in the GPS, you're using Waze or Google Maps, whatever it is. I'm a Waze kind of guy. If you guys are Google Maps, dude, man, forget you guys. No, I'm just kidding. It's like Apple and Android. I'm a Waze kind of guy. So if I put in the destination and it's 8 hours away, 8 hours, do I know anything like on hour 5, 7, 6? Dude, all I do is follow the GPS. I see what right in front of me. When it says make that right, I make that right. When it says go straight this way, go there, then make the left, At some point, I will get there. I will get there if I keep stepping, right? So you got to understand that you need to start breaking down these steps in ways that you can take them. So stop worrying about how I can get to 100,000 followers. Stop worrying how I could blow up and, make 10,000 a month. Stop worrying about how, all these different things that are like, I mean, it's not bad to have, goals that propel you and visions like that, but focus on how, like, let's say you're working a job right now. I got some friends, that, they like want to get into real estate. You know what I mean? They're like, I want to get into real estate. They always want to get into real estate. You hear people say, I want to get in real estate. I want to get in real estate investing. They say they want to do it. Then why haven't they done it yet? It's because they haven't broken down the steps, right? They haven't compartmentalized how to get to that destination. They're focusing on the destination or the journey rather than the very first step. If you're trying to get into real estate, could you not very simply just go on youtube.com and literally type in getting started in real estate? And then take that really seriously. Just watch the video and take that seriously, right? And then whatever they talk about, go watch another video. Then go watch another video. And then comprise the very first step maybe that you can do, right? Maybe let me go join a Facebook group in my local area of real estate investors. Just click join. Can you just click join? You can click join. And then when you see an event that goes, this event's this Saturday, don't BS. Go to the event. Can you not just go to the event? And if you miss it because you have work or whatever, it doesn't matter. Just when you schedule, get to a point where you get to that event, take the next step. Like, all right, I'll wait till the next one. Or maybe, I'll, message somebody in that group and, hey, how did that event go? I'd love to learn more about real estate. And I wish I could have gone to the event. And boom, now you're maybe making a connection. Oh man, it was great, dude. Hey man, maybe we should grab lunch sometime, blah, blah, blah. Things are moving forward. You see how things are happening and you're just taking the steps, dude. So if you're trying to find direction, you need to figure out what it is you want in life. Stop focusing on what people are doing in life. Figure out what it is that you want, right? Really spend some time thinking about what makes you excited, what stimulates you. And I don't want to hear that, I don't really know. Because if you don't know, then you're really in trouble. That means you really need to spend time really just doing things. You need to start doing things. You just need to figure out what makes you happy, what doesn't, what you like. Go pick up a guitar, go take some dance classes. I can promise you, you can find very successful, happy people in every type of industry of things in life, right? Yeah. There's someone who literally loves just making pottery. And they make tons of money selling it maybe on Etsy or something. Or, there's a girl I know literally making a 6-figure income selling shower curtains online. Custom made shower curtains, drop shipping them. And then, she finally did white labeling, kind of has her own designs now. Right. Anyway, again, that's doesn't matter. She just started with, I want to start a business. And then she started taking little steps, anyway. So that's kind of that's how you want to really find direction in your life. Right. And I have to say this. I know you said only one thing, but this is more so not necessarily like you need to do, but you kind of need to do it, but it's more so just, it's important. When you do those two things that I talked about, this is just very important. You need to commit to that. It's always easy. Well, it's hard for people to get started. That's really the hardest part is just getting started. A lot of people, they just need to get started. But if you can get started, it's really easy to get off track. Everybody and their mom is trying to get you off track. Come do this. Come do this. This is making a lot of money. This is giving you the life that you want. This is it. You need to stay in your own lane. As a real estate investor, one quick example be done. I don't want to build a huge rental portfolio. What? Wow, Myles, what? Why don't you want to build a huge rental portfolio? Dude, I make a great income in real estate investing. I've automated the wholesaling real estate side of my business. I am buying a few rental properties. I already know the number and the cash flow that I went with that. It's only about 10 properties just for tax appreciation, depreciation, things like that. And then in terms of passive income, I am working as fast as I can to just, I don't want to say skip because it's not necessarily that everyone has to go through that journey, but I just don't even want to get into I'm doing tons of fix and flips. And even though it's great money, I got some friends, they just did 80,000 on a flip or they just did 40,000 on a flip. It's great. Right. I'm staying in my lane. I'm getting into triple net leasing for a specific reason because it meets what I want and the life that I want to live. And it allows me to not waver and get distracted by the shiny syndrome. I know where I'm going. It makes me happy. I'm making great income. I'm living the life that I want. And that's all that matters, dude. What is it that you want in life? So that's the last thing I'll say is, who were you before the world told you who you were? You need to go figure that out. Because at this point, if you're listening to this podcast, you're watching this YouTube video, I won't say everybody, but I'll definitely say probably more than half of the people have become someone that they weren't when they originally were on this journey and things that got them excited in life and things like that. And they became somebody that the world told them they needed to be. who were you before the world told you who you were? And you go figure that out, commit to that. And I'm telling you, you'll definitely start living a life that you really want.
Let's go. Let's go, Myles. All right, you're firing me up, man. Well, Myles,
let's go.
Man, thank you so much for being here. Thank you for taking your time, man. I know you're out with the family. You got the big walk tomorrow. So again, thank you so much for being here, brother. Massively appreciate your wisdom. And I know people are going to get loads and loads of value from the episode. So thanks, brother.
Thank you, man. Just so honored to literally just, first of all, to see your face, man. Anybody who's watched this YouTube video, if you're only listening to the podcast, you're missing out, because this guy's the prettiest male I've ever seen in my life, and you need to go watch the YouTube video, dude. You look just as good as, like, I don't know how many years ago. Like, you never age. I don't think you'll ever age, dude. I don't know. Maybe Tony Robbins is giving you guys some stuff I need to get on, but I don't know, dude. You look great, man. You look great. I love your energy. I love what you're doing, man. This is awesome. I love what you're doing. It's great. And we gotta connect even out, more even outside. I know our lives are kind of wild and crazy, but we definitely gotta connect. So I appreciate you, man. Thank you for having me on.
Absolutely.